Welcome to the second half of our special podcast with the candidates for the NHC GOP party leadership. I'm Will Sample, and I'm joined by Nikki Bascom. Nikki, let's have you introduce our next contestant on the podcast.
Oh, I am so excited. John Hinnant, come on down. You're the next contestant on Is Your Price Right?
$1, Bob.
Good evening, John. Welcome to the podcast. As we did with Bob last night, I'm going to show you our official Wilmington conservative timer. You've got 30 minutes to answer your questions. What we will do.
So much money on this. Can you tell?
This is high-tech stuff here, folks. You've got 30 minutes. We've got the exact same questions that we asked last night. If you get through them all and there's time left over, we'll do some follow-ups. Not fact-checking, but just follow-ups. If you go the whole 30 minutes, then we go with the whole 30 minutes. So this is up to you to see how you want to run it. So the time begins after Nikki successfully reads the first question.
You just had to say successfully.
Let me bring that on up. And here we go.
Okay, John Hinnant, how did you decide to run for chairman of the new Hanover County GOP?
Great question. Thank you. Yeah. So after the 22 campaign, I had a number of people ask me to consider running for chair. I had a campaign where I was running for state house, but I made it a point to bring down ballot people with me when I had meet and greets and I had rallies, and it was the phrase "party unifier" was used with me, and I just didn't feel like my political career was over, and was talked to by a lot of people, and so my wife and I decided to run for county commissioner in 2024. Had a good campaign. Came real close to raising the money I needed to raise and that I thought I needed to raise, and came close. It was the most contested county commission race in all of North Carolina. There was no county commission race as close, separating first place from sixth place by 1%, as tight as our race was. And within about a week, I started getting phone calls and text messages, and it probably ended up being about 3 to 4 dozen people who said, "John, you ought to consider running for chair." And so I think after about the second dozen came through, my wife said, maybe we ought to think about this. If everybody keeps calling us, and we got stopped in the grocery store a couple of times, and so it's just, it's truly humbling. And I think that it's, for me, people say, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I was like, well, I tend to think of myself as a leader, and I think I want to provide some real leadership. I think that's been, and not to be derogatory or negative to the current team, but there's been some turnover, and a lot of things end up on the very few plates. And so very few people end up doing 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. And I think that what we need to do as a leader, for me, is to make sure we get more buy-in from volunteers and make sure we get more people helping carry the load. I don't want any one person doing a job by themselves. I want to make sure that everybody has 2 to 3 helpers, making sure that the work's not hard, but the work is fun and the work is engaging and it's rewarding. And I want to make sure that we don't have some of this divisiveness that's gone on. It's really strange. The more I engage with people, the more I hear, "I won't work with fill in the blank." And I'm sorry, we all have the same goal, and we're all on the same boat. And if you're at the front of the canoe and the back of the canoe is taking on water, you have to realize that's your problem too. And so we got to get together as a party and do a better job. And so I was in the thick of it in 2022 when we swept the school board race, and New Hanover County carried all 6 statewide judicial races. So we can get back to that It's just a matter of having the right leadership. And so why did I decide to do this? Because I was asked by so many people.
Next one is from Nikki again.
I have so many questions. My whole life revolves around it. So what relationships do you have with District 7 and state leaders, and how will you use those to benefit New Hanover County?
That's a great question. In my run for State House, I got to know the House Caucus Political Director, Stephen Wiley, who I think is probably one of the brightest minds in the state on Republican politics. I've become friends with John Bell, who is now the Rules Chairman. He was the House Majority Leader. Speaker Destin Hall and I have spoken a number of times. Jason Simmons and I text message each other quite regularly. Congressman Rouser's District Director, Chance Lameth, and I have been friends for over 5 years. I've been talking with a young man who was on the legal team at the North Carolina GOP. He's relocated here for now, and I'm waiting on his confirmation, but he might step in to be our executive director if my slate's elected. And having worked on the NC GOP, he's going to make sure that our political strategy is closely aligned with the state GOP. But I've also been crystal clear, we've got to be uniquely tailored to the nature of our county being so purple. So I have a lot of relationships with people in and out, in and around the district and statewide. Of course, my wife is a member, and I'm an associate member of the Lower Cape Fear Republican Women's Club, which covers New Hanover and Pender. And so I've got relationships with elected officials in both Brunswick and Pender. So I believe strongly that I have the relationships to build an alliance in southeastern North Carolina to make sure that we're getting our voice heard statewide.
Next question is coming from me, so you know it's going to be intelligent.
And the screen breaks.
The ball.
According to the latest numbers from the Board of Elections, New Hanover is fairly split between R's and D's, but with a large independent bloc that votes Democrat. How will you keep Republicans competitive at the polls?
That's a great question. In fact, I kind of mentioned this at the town hall the other night. We have to provide value and service as a party year round. We can't just show up in October and November but suddenly be relevant. We have to be relevant all year round. And I think the key to winning in the municipals comes in June when it's time to do municipal and county budgets. We just went through a massive reval in New Hanover County. My house went up 71% in value. And they're going to claim they're doing a revenue neutral budget. But every time we've done a reval and they claim it's a revenue neutral budget, our taxes go up. And in the city of Wilmington, my taxes have gone up twice in the last 4 years. And this is not something I'm doing because I'm going to be party chair. I'm doing it because it's personal to me. I'm pissed off. It's getting more expensive to live in this community. And in a time when housing affordability is at an all-time low, it's at a crisis level, inflation's been eating up our household budgets. If your taxes go up, then your mortgage payment goes up because your escrow has to increase to meet the demand for your 30-year mortgage payment. And so this is just extending and increasing the cost of housing if we allow our local governments to raise taxes. And so I plan to create an ad hoc committee for government affairs. We've got a number of volunteers already identified who are going to monitor the various elected boards. And my instruction to them was, you got to be in the room when they're having the budget workshops because you got to be able to read the room. You can't watch it on TV and understand how people are wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. And so I want to make sure that we can win the budget battle in June, July. Then when we come back out in August and September and we start knocking on doors, we can say, yeah, we were involved in the city council budget process. You can see our chairman up there speaking in the public hearing. You see all these other people in red, white, and blue wearing MAGA gear saying, hey, don't raise my taxes. And so if we provide service and we provide value year round, I think we'll start to get to some of those independent voters. But we also need to message to them better. One of the key things for me is improving our communications. I think we have to do a better job of messaging to the independents, and that's where being closely aligned with the state GOP's political strategy is going to be critically important, because they've got experts, they've got political scientists, they've got people who are specialists at this. And so it's important that we align closely with them, but also understanding we have to tailor to the very purple nature of our county.
Next question. As I bring it up.
And you're the intelligent one.
Easy. Evaluate what the county leadership has done, and we're talking about the GOP county leadership has done, right? And where they could have improved over the last 2 years.
I'll give credit where credit's due. Fundraising was phenomenal. This current leadership did a great job with fundraising, and they've set a new standard. They've established and they're executing a fundraiser not for them, but for the next slate. And I think that's critically important, because when they came, we all know what happened when they came in. There was almost no money in the bank, and they had to hustle. And as a candidate, I was one of them. I had to write a check, and I had to buy my sponsorship to the LDR Gala early. We had to step up to make sure that we could protect the full faith and credit of the party. And so I give them a lot of credit. I think they did a great job at fundraising. I think the party's leadership probably struggled a little bit with communication. I had heard that there was discussion to try to pick the website, and they kept spinning their wheels. I know that the party has a database of somewhere between 11 and 30,000 email addresses, but we didn't utilize it. We didn't do any candidate profiles in email to our people. That cost us almost nothing. And it generates a high return, because you get the candidate's name, face, and story into the inboxes of Republican voters. I think in 2023, I was knocking doors in the municipal election, and I remember as we were walking out, we're going to see lazy voters. Explain that to me. And they say they only vote in the presidential elections. They live in the annex areas of Wilmington, and they never vote in the municipals. And that proved to be wrong. You have to know, you have to have the right strategy. And this is why it's so important for us to be politically aligned with the state party. So I think that they could have done better at communication. They could have done better at strategy. And I know that the executive board was running strategy out of their committee as opposed to a strategy committee. That's something I'm looking to reconstitute. I'm also looking to add a few other people to it that have worked in the political arena professionally to kind of help us make sure we understand the consequences before we make the decision.
Okay. Next question. We are at 18 minutes left, so we are doing really well in terms of time. Coming up on the screen for you.
The new Hanover County GOP relies on committees to get the work done. How will you structure the committees in order to get Republicans elected? You've already touched on a lot of it, but go ahead and reiterate some of the ideas.
So this is big, because I think I'm told that our communications committee almost kind of completely fell apart and is barely existent at this point. So in my first 30 days, we'll have 3 to 4 committee interest meetings where we'll open up the GOP. We'll have members from each committee present at a table around the room, and we'll invite everybody who attends the convention. We'll invite anybody. We have an email list for it. Hey, we'll put it on social media. If you're a registered Republican, you want to help get Republicans elected, we've got all these standing committees. There's no need to structure the committees. The committees are structured by the plan of organization. And so what we need to do is fill the room and fill the committees with people that would have an interest and a desire. I've already been in talks with some of the folks at college Republicans at UNC Wilmington, and we've got a young lady, Peyton, who is a communications and marketing major. She's going to join the communications team. And she and I had a long talk, and she said, listen, I'm a full-time student. I have an internship. I'm concerned about my ability to commit the time necessary. And I said, Peyton, I want you to pick the thing you have the capacity to be successful at. And if TikTok becomes an American-made company, the new Hanover GOP will likely have a TikTok channel, and Peyton will be the one that makes it happen. I don't know what this old dude's going to look like on TikTok, but we're going to give it a shot. There's
Are you
also
gonna dance? I want to see some dances.
yeah, I'll do my 1980s moon dance for you. But the other student's a political science major, and he's looking to get into the weeds with things. And what's great about these kids is they want to stay here, and they can't get plugged into our community without a group like the New Hanover Republican Party. And so we know everybody in town. I don't know why we couldn't help them stay here and find a great career when they graduate. So I think having those open committee interest meetings is going to be big. If people are willing to come out on a Monday night for a county convention, they've got to be willing to give us an afternoon or an evening or a morning, one day a week, an hour to contribute to the success of some of our committees, and do that. I think I feel like if our communications committee is about 15 to 20 people, we could break down every little element of communications to a different person, and it should just be streamlined. And I've already built out a calendar, a 12-month calendar columned on a sheet of paper, and down the horizontal lines is how many emails a week, how many social media posts per platform, how many postcards when we mail postcards or when we do letter campaigns. Every communication, social media post, everything's mapped out already. We need a communications committee to kind of come in and fill in the blanks. And so I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to bring some fresh, youthful energy into the organization. And I think you'll see a difference on day 31 once we get the committees filled. I think you'll see a big difference.
Final prepared question that we have for you, John. How can people find out more about your slate?
Yeah. So we do have a website. It's thehinnantslate.com. It's the most original slate name in recent history in the GOP. And so it's my name. It's thehinnantslate.com. The homepage is kind of wonky on your mobile, so take a look at it on your laptop. You can also go to my old website. It's the same place, electjohnhinnant.com. We are a group a dynamic group. I'm really proud of my team. We've got Don Rudy, who's the current treasurer of the GOP, 82nd Airborne, retired CPA, plays golf 4 to 5 days a week. Great guy, married 45 years to his wife, Susan. Susan's a trophy wife. And what I mean by that is when she plays golf, she wins a trophy. She wins tournaments almost weekly. Florence Gazeppo, for secretary, she's an accounting specialist at UNC Wilmington. She, in telling her story, it was only a couple of weeks after the Bill Clinton inauguration in 1993, she realized that the Democrats weren't Democrats; they were socialists, and they were governing against her Christian values, and so she became a Republican back in 1993. She was the precinct chair for MO6, and Donald Trump won her precinct by almost 10%. And that's because she went out and knocked every Republican door and every right-leaning unaffiliated door. She would work all day Saturday. She would knock doors Sunday. She would knock doors after work Monday through Friday. Just a hard worker and so charming and such a sweet person. She's amazing. The second vice chair is Shar Marker. Shar has been in Wilmington since 2017. She and her husband retired from the FBI, so she traveled the world, and she was heavily involved in community issues in Saudi Arabia when they were stationed there. When she got back to the States, she volunteered at the inauguration for Trump in 2017. And then when she got to Wilmington, she immediately got involved, was the precinct chair for HO2. She's since moved to Castle Hayne, and so she's the precinct chair of CFO1, where they had an 88% turnout of Republicans in 2024. And if you look at the results for CFO1, that's where we want it. That 88% turnout, because it was close. But we got the vote turned out there, and she's such a super hard worker. She volunteered every day at early voting. She volunteered at the GOP headquarters once a week and literally mopped the floor of the GOP once a week, not for her own glory, but to make sure the place looked great for us. And then my first vice chair, Thomas Murphy, he owns a State Farm Agency. Back in 2020, he got real active, and he and some other business owners created the Cape Fear Business Alliance in frustration to the who's essential and who's not essential. And so when I ran for office in 2022, one of my first events, I was having a hard time finding a photographer based on my politics. And so I reached out to them and they said, hey, we got you a photographer, no problem. So they plugged me in. And those guys, he's been a huge help. Thomas has over the years donated to local candidates and hosted fundraisers at his home for local and statewide candidates. And combined, the five of us, I went through the campaign finance reports for the New Hanover Republican Party, and the five of us combined in 2024, this is a shocking number, Rule. I don't know if you've heard this. We gave $15,000. That's 25% of the GOP's operating expenses. The five of us combined. But we put our money where our mouth is, and we lead by example, and that's how we'll govern the GOP when we're elected.
We are at 10 minutes and 32 seconds. So you really blew through those, which means that you get to answer a lot of follow-up questions.
Right.
One of the things that happened today on the Wilmington Conservative is that we published the report of the Election Integrity Committee. And I'm sure you haven't had a chance to read that.
I was anxiously waiting, seeing it in my inbox, but I am interested to hear about it.
It is up on the Wilmington Conservative website, and it's just still being put out there. How are you going to continue to make sure that we have secure, safe, and fair elections here in New Hanover County? What kind of oversight can the chair of the party provide for that?
Yeah, I think it's important, again, that you have the right people on the election integrity team. Unfortunately, our chair, Matt Borski, is changing professions, and it's unknown how much he'll be able to remain involved. But Jules Rothwein and Joe Ellen and the rest of the people in the committee are just phenomenal. And I think it's important that we get them the support they need. And the young man, I didn't mention his name, but the one that sat on the North Carolina GOP legal team, who's now living in Wilmington, if I can get him to agree to be on board with us. And he said, if I don't take this other professional opportunity, I'll do whatever I can to help New Hanover County GOP. If I can get him in there, I think it'll help having a set of legal eyes on it. I believe there's going to be a movement afoot from both the Trump administration as well as the North Carolina to go same-day voting, paper ballot, no machine counts, no mail-in. I think there's enough of a push I'm seeing on national social media channels like X. There's Trump is regularly bringing it up. Elon Musk is bringing it up, and Elon is investing in election integrity himself. I don't know if you're aware, but America PAC is still on the ground in North Carolina. North Carolina is one of the states Elon is remaining engaged in, and so I think we're going to see some headway on federal and statewide efforts to make our elections the most secure ever.
One of the things that you brought up earlier was about some of the divisions in the Republican Party. You mentioned the Lower Cape Fear women. There's also another women's group here in New Hanover County. They've got Republicans who are spread all over the place in terms of their thoughts about the party. How are you going to bring that divisiveness together? How are you going to unite the party? Or is that even possible?
Well, one, it starts with leadership. Two, it starts with better communications. And three, accountability. Promises made, promises kept. That's what we got to do. We've got to build. One of the things I want to do is I want to move into what's called a consent agenda when our executive committee meets. And for those that don't know, our executive committee is all of our precinct chairs, all of our officers, all of the local elected officials. And in the consent agenda, we will email out, which will be early in the agenda, all the committee reports. So all the committees. Hey, we didn't meet. Or, yeah, we've had 3 meetings. Here's what we've done. And so the committees will be giving us a report of what they had. And so members of the executive committee will see exactly what's going on across the organization before they even show up to a meeting. And they may be coming to the meeting wanting to know what's going on. They're going to know everything that's happening before they show up. And so we implemented a consent agenda when I was CEO of Wilmington Downtown Inc. And what happened was the bulk of our meeting shrunk down to about 30 seconds or a minute because everybody had to report at home for a week and they read it. And so then you can spend the rest of your hour on big issues like strategy or a communications plan, which hopefully we have before the first executive committee meeting. But the idea is make sure everybody's crystal clear on the strategy, because when we go out to talk to voters, everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be using the same phrasing and words and communication style. We want to make sure we empower our volunteers with all the knowledge that we have. I can't tell you how many times I stood in line during early voting election day, and a voter would say, "Hey, I have a concern about Mark Robinson." Well, let me tell you about Josh Stein. Let me tell you that he voted for budgets that put us $6 billion in debt. Let me tell you that he voted for budgets that furloughed state employees. He voted for budgets that froze teacher pay. And as AG, he refused to defend our state and he refused to enforce the law. The Attorney General has like two things to do: enforce the law and defend our state. And it wasn't a matter of me trying to convince them to vote for Mark Robinson, but to get them to understand how important it was to vote against Josh Stein, because he's the most liberal person ever elected in statewide politics in North Carolina. Most.
It took a lot to get any investigations on the sexual abuse here in Hanover County, and that was under Josh Stein's watch. He was Attorney General at that time, and he should have been on it, and he should have been first one knocking on the Hanover County door saying, "What can I do to help?" And he didn't.
Yeah, and listen, I understand that I got into the 24 race knowing that the top of the ticket was going to be very noisy, be it Trump, be it Robinson, be whoever. And Nikki and I went in there fully aware of what was going to happen. And it was, we as a party didn't do a good enough job training our volunteers who were electioneering at early voting about understanding who the candidates were that we were supporting, but more importantly, giving us the oppo research on the Democrat side. I think that's important because we had volunteers that were just kind of conceding the item, and we have to do a better job of getting everybody ready.
We're at 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure that I give you time right at the end for your elevator pitch. But 2025 is coming up 2026 is coming up with a huge Senate race. And you know it's going to be Cooper on one side. How are we going to unite folks behind whoever gets that Senate nod from the primaries?
Yeah, so it's if Roy Cooper is the Democrat candidate, he also voted for budgets, furloughed state employees. He doesn't have a very good legislative voting record either, and he is a very partisan. He's demonstrated he's very partisan. The Senate is that upper chamber. It's where we're supposed to send our best, right? And it is estimated that race is going to be $1 billion on both sides with a B. And so what's going to be critically important is that we get the momentum and energy behind our local down ballot races, because we have to focus on our down ballot races. And if we can deliver our down ballot races, we can deliver for the Senate race.
We are at 2:57. I am going to give you the rest of the time for your elevator pitch. Tell us quickly why people should vote for you for NHC GOP chair.
Thank you, Rule. Thank you, Nikki. I think the only way you can vote for me is if you register at newhanovergop.org and do it before tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow night? No, Thursday night.
It'll be Thursday night.
The 27th at midnight is when pre-registration cuts off. It'll be $10 more at the door, and they will only take checks or cash. And you can only support me if you're a delegate. So you have to get there early enough to sit in your precinct meeting and work to become a delegate at the convention, and then you get to vote for leadership. I bring a unique, battle-worn campaign experience from 2 recent campaigns. And I've worked at the height of digital technology, and the future of political campaigning is going to have to incorporate digital, as well as long format entertainment venues like podcasts. It's going to take a lot of different techniques and technologies that only somebody as recently tested as I am understands. We have to improve our leadership, and it starts with leadership, and that comes from the top. We have to improve our communications, and we have to improve our accountability. If we can address those three things out of the gate, I think it'll improve the unity of the party. And as we go into victory, and when we come out of victory lane, as they say, we'll be a unified party if we get everybody across the finish line. So, again, thank you. It's humbling, man. It's an honor, and it's humbling to have people call you out of the blue, or stop you in the grocery store, or bump into you somewhere and go, "Hey, man, I want you to do this." And it's, nothing about what I've seen from the last 2 or 3 chairmen would make anyone want to sign up for this. So, but I feel like we are poised for great success. We've got great momentum. I think the 22 results should have fostered a lot more momentum, and we just took our eye off the ball. And I think that a good leader can keep our eye on the ball. So that's what I'm looking to do. So thank you.
Well, that is at 23 seconds left over. So there we go.
Get my money's worth.
Yeah. Yes, you did. So I'm going to pause that. John Hinnant, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing your speech at the convention, and that is coming up March 3rd. We're going to put you back in the green room so that the rest of your podcast can upload, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, John.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
John.
Yep. Bye.
Well, Nikki, that's it. That's the 2 candidates from both slates that are running for March 3rd for the NHC GOP leadership. And as John said, why would anybody want to run for that position?
But hang on one second. But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Just so everyone knows, anyone can nominate another slate on the floor of the convention. So these are the 2 slates that we are aware of that have come out and said that they're running. These are the 2 slates that have had the gumption to say, I'm doing this, and put themselves out there. And I'm so excited. Thank you for I don't even know how to say it. Thank you for allowing me to come up with this crazy idea of, hey, let's have both slates on our podcast.
Well, let me tell you, Nikki, if I ever need a crazy idea, you're on speed dial. So
if you ever want to have fun, more cowbell. You need more cowbell.
Oh, please. Oh, man. Well, thank you all very much for joining us on our podcast. We're going to be splitting this podcast up in a variety of ways for folks to compare and to see everything. So our job here at the Wilmington Conservative is to allow you to get all the information that you can without any fact checking on our part. So I think we have done that well. So this has been the Nikki and Rule podcast experience. I'm Rule Sample.
I'm Nikki Bascom.
Thank you all for joining us.